So I want to like kind of combine Mama Gena's definition and mine and suggest that flirtation is playing in the presence of another. Whatever play means to you. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be, doing improv or playing a board game. It could just mean, something that is delightful and kind of for its own sake. From the Relationship Center, I'm psychotherapist and dating coach Jessica Engel, and this is I Love You Too, a show about how to create and sustain meaningful relationships.
I'm professional certified coach Josh Van Vliet, and on today's episode, we're going to talk about how to flirt like a feminist. We're so happy you're here, and please remember that this show is not a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional.
A quick note from future Josh and Jessica. When we were listening back to this episode, we realized that a number of our examples referenced men dating women, as that is often who comes to us for help with flirting along feminist lines. We just want you to know that even though you'll hear that, the principles we discuss in this episode do apply to people of all genders and orientations. Let's go ahead and dive in and enjoy the show.
So I am so excited to dig into this topic with you today, how to flirt like a feminist.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those topics where there's so much information out there about flirting, and there's so much bad information out there about flirting.
Yes.
It's, I know as we were talking about and preparing for this episode, we were thinking about do we even want to talk about flirting? It's so, it can be such kind of it's kind of not great topic because it's often used in a way or talked about in a way that's manipulative or kind of like trying to get something from somebody rather than tricks and tips. Yeah. But I think that's part of why we actually got excited about talking about this, because we have a little bit of a different viewpoint on flirting and how we flirt like a feminist in a way that's respectful and kind and fun. It still creates connection, but doesn't use any of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when I was looking up a bunch of different resources around flirtation in preparation for this, I was reminded of that kind of like cringy feel of going into the, dating blogosphere and finding all of this kind of pickup artistry stuff, which did make it feel like, no, this is a really important conversation to have.
Yeah. And so we're going to attempt to answer 4 questions in our episode today. The first simply is, what is flirting? And why is it important?
Yes.
Second question will be, how do you flirt without being creepy? We hear this a lot from our clients. Third, what does it mean to flirt like a feminist? Why are we using those words for this? And fourth, what if you feel too shy to flirt?
Yes. Yes.
So anything you want to say before we just dive right into the first question?
Let's dive.
Okay. So what is flirting? What is flirting on a basic level?
Yeah. So one of the best definitions I came across is from a guy named Jeffrey Hall. He wrote a book called The 5 Flirting Styles. He's a researcher out of Kansas. And he defines flirtation as when one person expresses romantic or sexual interest in another person, is the target of such an expression, or is just engaged with another person and trying to figure out whether the feeling is mutual.
The bottom line that I'm getting from that is it's a way of letting somebody know if you're interested, or like in the words of one of our clinicians, how would they know if you're interested?
Yes. Yes, it's a way to let someone know you're interested in more than friendship. I also love about this definition that it talks about it's just engaging to even figure out whether there's a mutual feeling.
Yeah, I love that piece. I'm glad you highlighted that.
Yeah, and one of the things that I liked about this definition, there's a lot of different kind of like frames or perspectives on flirtation. One of the other definitions I came across was in the sort of evolutionary biology direction, and they talk about flirtation as the way that human beings check one another out and assess sexual compatibility without having sex, which is helpful because sex can be risky or costly, right? Babies, STIs, all of that. But something with that definition, I'm like, right now, as I'm looking at you, you're kind of like, yeah.
It feels like mechanical and kind of Yeah. Something about it rubs me the wrong way.
Totally. Me too. It's like, yes, there's probably truth to that. And it kind of just boils us down to kind of like animal wiring.
Yeah.
It also makes flirtation seem surreptitiously evaluative.
Yeah.
Which I don't know about you, but if I'm evaluating or being evaluated, that's like, my instincts to flirt just go out the window.
And it makes it really hard to actually establish or discover if there's a connection.
Yes.
Which I feel like is, for me, a core part of flirting is about both signaling interest, like, hey, I think you're cool. Like, I'm curious to get to know you better. And I love this other part of the first definition where it's trying to discover, is that feeling mutual? Is there a connection? Is there a mutual interest to get to know each other better? And so that kind of evolutionary biology definition seems very, like, takes the connection, takes the play and the exploration out of it.
Yes.
And makes it very kind of mechanical.
Yes, I agree. I think it also potentially, like, I think this is one of the things a lot of sort of dating gurus have kind of pointed to, I don't know, kind of like offer some repackaged sexism through their flirtation advice, right? And kind of heteronormative advice where it's like, the man is wired to approach and the woman is wired to be receptive. And it creates these very sort of black and white gender roles that I think don't fit a lot of people and make people feel kind of boxed in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so let's move on to a feminist definition of flirting. Okay. And then we can also kind of get into some specifics. So there's a woman named Mama Gena. She's an author and a feminist icon. She really teaches about lifting women up, particularly through their sensuality. She defines flirting as enjoying yourself in the presence of another.
Enjoying yourself in the presence of another.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah, like even as I read that compared to reading the other ones, like I notice my nervous system just goes like,
Yeah, I kind of relax a little bit. It's like, I'm not trying to get something from somebody. I'm not trying to like figure out what are the right things to say to manipulate somebody into a relationship or into sex or into whatever. It's just enjoying myself in the presence of another.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to talk with people about how the heart of flirtation is play, right? And enjoyment is the heart of play. So I want to like kind of combine Mama Gena's definition and mine and suggest that flirtation is playing in the presence of another. Whatever play means to you. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be, doing improv or playing a board game. It could just mean, something that is delightful and kind of for its own sake. I think that's the other piece in here is play it's never done for an objective. Right. And I'd like to think of flirtation in that way. It's not that we're trying to, as you've been mentioning, like manipulate or get something from someone. It's that we're showing up to be in a delightful experience with another person.
Yeah. But how would you square that with the part of the first definition where we are looking to discover if there's mutual interest?
Yeah, I sort of hold it as like we're playing and it is very likely we're going to get good information about how we are with that person, what we're interested in, what they're interested in. But we're not doing it to obtain that information and I must transmit this message to this person to X, Y, and Z. Are you laughing at me?
I'm just appreciating your very intense, I must transmit this to this. No, I really, I like what you're saying there about, it's almost a little bit of a paradox of holding both playing for its own sake. We're enjoying each other's company. We're just enjoying being together. I'm enjoying myself in your presence. And when we're dating, we're looking for a connection. We are trying to assess, is this person a potential good fit for a longer term partner? But when we're so focused on assessing, we're not playing anymore.
Right.
And the kind of irony of that is then we miss out on the chance to really understand if we play well together, if we enjoy playing together, if we have a connection that invites play, that invites us to take some small but meaningful risks, to do things that are a little uncomfortable but fun together. That it makes it hard to actually play if we're just focused on the evaluative side of things.
Yes. Yeah, in some ways, I think this definition, it requires us to have some trust, some trust and faith in, if I show up and I'm present, I will learn from that. I will clarify what is actually here rather than needing to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm curious about why, we're kind of dancing around a little bit, but like why is flirting important?
Yeah. So one of the most common things we hear from our clients is that they struggle to develop deeper connections or romantic connections. Like they'll find themselves kind of, quote unquote, friend zoned. And I think that flirtation is one way to make sure that we are in the exploratory process with someone in a way that opens the door for more of a romantic connection over a friendly connection. I do think that flirtation in a romantic relationship includes all of the ways we, quote unquote, flirt with friends. If I, with my friends, am somebody who listens intently and smiles and makes jokes, I'm not going to stop doing that, right? Just because I'm also interested in someone. It's just that I'm going to be adding on these other pieces. So there will be times when it feels maybe more friendly. I think that the key in terms of maybe developing more of that romantic side of things is allowing yourself to go to those more romantic, sensual places.
Yeah, and I love that point because it's like when we're looking for a life partner or a long-term partner, we're looking for both someone with whom we have sexual attraction, desire, connection, compatibility, but we're also looking for somebody with whom we have a great just friend connection, that we just enjoy each other's company, whether or not we're in the bedroom, that's just as important an aspect of how you are together.
Yes.
There's so many parts of life that you're going to do together, beyond sexuality.
Yes. Yeah, we did a nice deep dive in our episode on what to look for in a long-term partner about this. Like friendship is kind of the basis of really happy long-term relationships. So both that sort of more friendly flirtation and the more sensual or romantic hopefully is present in someone that you're kind of exploring with.
Yeah. I think of some of the people, and we've talked about, some of the reality dating shows that we watch occasionally, seeing some of the kind of pitfalls people fall into of being super respectful.
Yes.
Being super, almost overly conscientious of not doing something that will be creepy or kind of intruding on what the person seems like they do or don't want. And then the other person just misses the fact that they're interested at all.
Right.
And so kind of what we're aiming for, I think, in approaching an approach to feminist flirting is one that is respectful, that is taking care of, that is kind of being mindful of what the other person is open to and interested in, but also not holding back so much that you don't authentically signal, I like you.
Yeah.
I want to explore this together, both verbally, non-verbally, all the different ways that we might communicate that on a first date, all the way through, the rest of your lives. Because flirting doesn't start or stop at the first date.
That's right. Yeah, that's really the other reason flirtation is so important. I mean, flirtation should be a part of a happy, successful, long-term relationship. Sexual satisfaction is a huge part of long-term satisfaction, and flirtation is sort of one face of that.
Yeah. I love how we're drawing this out to really the bigger picture of flirting. Because I think also the other thing that comes up around flirting is that it's about how do I cold approach people at a bar?
Right. Yes.
That's what flirting is.
Yes.
And it's like, no. I mean, there may be things about flirting that, yes, you can use that to approach people or make connections in person with people that you don't know yet. But that goes so far beyond that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I think one of our goals for this episode is to really kind of, lower the bar for flirtation. I think we talk with a lot of people day in, day out about how they just feel too shy or too intimidated to flirt, or they just don't know how. And, one of our clinicians really pointed out that, most people, they are flirting often, right? Whether it's a smile or following up with a question or leaning in. We do all of these things that are in that flirtation energy. But so many people have what you just described in their minds when they think of flirtation. Well, I got to walk up to somebody at a bar, or somebody's got to approach me and I laugh at them. Ha ha ha. Throw back my hair.
That's what hooked me. Why don't we talk then about some of the principles of flirting and what flirting might look like? And then after that, we'll get into how to flirt without being creepy.
Great. Love it. Yeah, so let's talk principles of feminist flirting. If feminism's the radical notion that women are people who deserve equal rights as men, then it follows that feminist flirting is characterized by a few things. Okay. One, respect, right? So feminist flirtation is about enjoying oneself and others, not about acting on one another in a prescribed way in order to get a particular outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really important, it's like foundational, right?
Yes.
It's got to start with respect.
Yes, you got it. Second aspect of feminist flirting, equality. So anyone, regardless of their sex or genders, can initiate or receive flirtation.
I love this principle. There's so much like missed connection, I think, that happens out of the prescribed gender roles of either people who identify as men must be the initiators or the flirters or whatever, and people who identify as women, for hetero folks, must be the ones receiving flirtation. And it's like,
yes,
just get rid of all that junk.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I think we have some good research with online dating that confirms what you're saying. Like women who initiate, women who are willing to reach out are so much more likely to make a connection and build a relationship. Yeah. Okay, so that's equality. The third principle of feminist flirting, choice and consent.
Yes.
Yes. Feminist flirting is always consensual. As we say on our team, consent is sexy.
So sexy.
No one's entitled to another person flirting with them or receiving their flirtation energy in any particular way. And you have the right to end flirtation at any moment, even if previously you were an enthusiastic yes to that flirtation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, this is so important.
I think if we really, absorb this aspect of flirting, it opens up the space for more play, right? Because you can't play when there's lack of choice, when there's lack of consent, when there's lack of safety.
Lack of safety, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we shut down. We do not want to play when there's any sense that there's risk or danger, or danger really,
right.
Danger to our safety.
Right.
A little bit of healthy risk is okay, but not danger.
So what does feminist flirtation look like considering all of that, right? So if flirtation's playing in the presence of another, really flirtation is going to depend moment to moment, interaction to interaction, right? Flirtation could be eye gazing, it could be holding hands, it could be asking a meaningful question, inviting them to play a board game, or not. Right? So it's going to come back to what is play for you? What do you enjoy? Now, all of that said, let's talk about some concrete examples of potentially flirtatious behavior from scientific literature. As a dating coach, here and there I see pieces of science come through my inbox about this is the thing that will make someone attracted to you. And I want to just sort of caveat, like all of these studies, they're for, particular sexes, genders, and cultural contexts. So we've included links to all of them in our show notes. That's at relationshipcenter.com/podcast. So if you really want to dig into the science, you can do that. Here are some things that flirtation can look like. Number one, humor, including laughing at another person's jokes.
Wait, is that different than being funny?
It is. It is. Yeah, this is, I think, a potentially like relieving piece of information.
Like good
for people.
News. Good news.
Yeah, both making jokes and laughing at another person's jokes can make you more attractive. Another one is wearing revealing clothing. I think the science said that this one is more effective in short-term dating contexts.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is acts of generosity and commitment. That's like intimate conversations and spending time with another person.
Mm-hmm.
We've got asking questions, especially follow-up questions.
This is one of my favorites, especially the follow-up questions. Because for me, you can ask a question and get an answer and then kind of go on to the next question on your list. And that's not necessarily much connection or much signaling of interest or play. But a follow-up question says, I've listened to what you said. I'm interested in what you said. And I want to know more.
Yes.
And it's great to know that there's research that backs up, yes, people like this. This builds connection. This builds relationship. It has people enjoy spending time with you more.
Absolutely. Yes. So I can think about dates I've been on where someone has asked me questions, but it's been like questions about lots of different things instead of really diving deep into one topic. And it's given me the experience of being a little bit kind of like on an interview, right? It feels less like relational and more transactional.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So asking questions, especially follow-up questions, touch.
Mm-hmm.
Touch is a big one.
Yeah. And I feel like we should say something a little bit more about touch because it's a big one. It's obviously a signal of interest. It's a way to connect and play, but it also can be a really kind of dangerous, or even not necessarily dangerous, but scary thing to do for some folks.
Yes.
That it's very uncomfortable to reach out and touch, especially if we're worried about being creepy or violating a boundary.
Totally.
Yeah. So what would you say about that?
Yeah. I would say a lot about that.
I suspect you might.
I think let's put a pin in that and talk about it when we talk about not being creepy and being too shy.
Okay.
Because I think there's a lot to say about that.
Okay. We'll come back to that then.
Yeah. So touch, and there can be lots of different sort of layers of touch.
Types of touch.
Yeah. Or like, I know that one of the articles that I've tended to share with clients talks about touch in terms of friendly touch, plausible deniability touch, and I forget the last one. It's something like, I don't know, super obvious touch, right? So we could just touch somebody on the shoulder versus say, touch someone on the low of their back versus a kiss, right? There's going to be kind of increasing, I keep wanting to say severity. That's not it. So aside from touch, there's eye gazing and smiling. And when you do those two things together, it's sort of even more powerful. Imagine just looking at someone, no smile. Josh is doing that to me right now. Or smiling but not making eye contact, right? Much different to really see a genuine smile with some eye contact. And then we have, of course, compliments and open and inviting body language, like uncrossed arms or leaning forward.
Mm-hmm. I want to come back to compliments for a second, because I think this is one that can be a little bit of like we can do it badly sometimes. Particularly when the compliments are very much focused on somebody's physical appearance, their body, things that they really don't have any control over for the most part.
Yes.
And versus a compliment about something that they have some control over, whether it's even the clothes that they maybe chose or something that they've shared about what they did. Like, oh, I really loved I really admire the business that you've built.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Thank you.
And that is a more meaningful compliment than you look really hot today.
Right. Yeah. This one's really interesting because I think that there's sort of a sweet spot, right? So we often advise our clients, don't start with, hey, baby, you look hot today.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to build a long-term relationship, that might be actually a great opener if you're wanting just a casual interaction. But yeah, starting with a compliment that is focused on something they have control over. I think though that, in long-term relationships, we do give our partners compliments about their bodies often.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it seems like there's some sweet spot to find in there that is, as we're talking about when we're signaling desire, signaling attraction, signaling like, I'm into you.
Yes.
All of you, including your body.
Yes.
That is very appropriate sometimes. And maybe it's a better caveat for earlier on in dating.
Right.
Where it's like, first date, the thing you lead off with probably isn't, super hot. You're super hot if you're looking for more of a long-term relationship.
Right. Well, and just, you don't know that person yet. This is where the consent piece comes in. Right? Like, they may be totally happy with you making compliments, giving them compliments about their physical appearance. Do you want to start there and potentially cross a boundary, right? So you're slowly getting to know them and kind of getting a sense of where their boundaries are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what's going to feel good for them versus someone else. Right,
exactly.
Okay, so it seems like this might be a good moment to transition into how do we flirt without being creepy?
Yes, that's a great, important topic. We talk with a lot of people about this, particularly men dating women have fears about, being creepy, crossing a boundary, particularly in the Me Too era. Mm-hmm. So the way that I really think about creepiness is that there's a persistent boundary crossing, mm-hmm. right? So someone is doing something that's essentially non-consensual, and they're maybe incurring harm. They're either unaware that they're crossing a boundary, or they're kind of privileging their needs and desires over the other person's. Mm-hmm. If feminist flirting is the antidote to being creepy, and if it's respectful, choiceful, and consensual, here are some things that we do when flirting like a feminist. One, we're paying attention to verbal and nonverbal signals. Do they appear open to connecting? Mm-hmm. Do they have open body language? Are they smiling? Are they leaning in? Are they averting their gaze? Are they closing their body language off, turning away, walking away, mm-hmm. right? So paying attention to those signals. And one thing that I think is really helpful to do is to start with something that's less likely to be experienced as a boundary crossing. Okay, so an example of this would be to, start with holding eye contact for a moment across the room versus staring someone down. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Or asking a question versus going in for touch if you've just met someone.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's a great point. Touch is one of the ones that we really want to be a little bit more careful with, because that can be a quick road to crossing a boundary if we don't know somebody very well.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting you're saying that, because I'm thinking about a lot of the stuff out there in the sort of pickup artistry world, and they talk a lot about breaking the touch barrier as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Had a visceral reaction to you saying that.
Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of advice out there, I think, particularly for men who are looking at sort of seduction tactics for seducing women, mm-hmm. Just to be aware of. They're going to want you to touch as soon as possible, and we want you to touch in a way that's consensual and also works for your system.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing I want to just name. A lot of the men that I've talked to over the years, they say, like, I'm not ready for touch mm-hmm. until a certain period, and that's important to listen to.
So important.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so important, because, pushing yourself past a point where you aren't comfortable because you think that's what you need to do to connect with somebody is going to be so much more damaging, really.
Right.
That's not going to lead to a meaningful connection. And it's not kind to you.
Right.
It's not kind to what you need.
Yeah. Well, and I think another way to look at, flirting like a feminist is in feminism, we allow men to have a need for emotional connection mm-hmm. in relationships, mm-hmm. right? And it's okay for men to need an emotional foundation before getting physical.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so we are paying attention to signals. We start with something that's less likely to cause a boundary crossing, and then we're going to notice the other person's response to whatever we tried, right? Which hopefully we're choosing from a place of what would I enjoy right now with this person.
Wait, you just slipped that in there, but I want to, that's a great question.
Yes.
A way of choosing, like, what would I enjoy right now with this person from all the possible ways that we could flirt or signal interest or play. What would I enjoy right now with this person?
Right. Yeah, and that shifts it from that kind of standard way of thinking about flirtation. What are the things that I've been told are flirtatious that I should be doing?
Right.
Rather than really tuning into this moment and getting into a genuine space of enjoyment, which I promise you the other person will feel that.
Yeah.
So we are paying attention to verbal and nonverbal signals. We're starting with something that's less likely to be a boundary crossing. And we are noticing the other person's response and adjusting accordingly. So if I make eye contact with you from across the room and you return that eye contact, I might take the next step and come closer. Or if you avoid my eye contact, I may go do something else. And then lastly, in terms of how to not be creepy, when in doubt, ask for consent.
This is a great rule of thumb. This makes everything easier. And I know I've heard the thought heard people say like, oh, doesn't that make it less sexy or less something? And it's like, no. No, it doesn't. And there are ways to ask for consent that are still sexy, that are still like, signaling desire. I think just one of my favorites, if I can share,
please,
is stating what you want. Like, oh, I'd really like to hold your hand right now. Would you enjoy that?
Yes.
And that gives, it's a little risky because you're saying what you want and they may or may not want that. So you're kind of going out on a little bit of a limb.
Right.
But you're letting them know, here's what I'm interested in you. It's a way of very clearly signaling interest, signaling attraction, signaling desire, and then inviting them into that with you if they want to join you there.
Yes. Yeah. So what I noticed in your example, I'd like to hold your hand, would you enjoy that, was the tone that you said that with, right? So 93% of what we communicate is nonverbal or paraverbal. So the tone of our voice, right? The ums, the ahs. Only 7% are the words, right? So it's a very different thing to hear, oh, I'd really like to hold your hand versus I would like to hold your hand, right?
Would you like that too?
Would you like that too? I am obtaining consent.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I wonder also what you'd think about, because I know for some of the folks who listen to this, anxiety comes up. We all, we get nervous, we get anxious. We may have the thought, I'd like to say, I want to hold your hand. And I feel really anxious. I don't know if I can say it like that.
Yes.
What I would do, and I'm curious how you would, what you think of this. I would say, I'm feeling a little anxious right now. And I'd like to hold your hand. I feel a little nervous even saying that, but I wanted to share.
Yes.
Would you like that?
I mean, that's an incredible approach. 2 thumbs up.
Cool.
And what is hopefully reassuring is we actually have some good research that shows that people who are nervous appear more attractive on dates. The old sort of, oh, you got to appear aloof and distant, that doesn't apply to establishing long-term, secure, functioning relationships. So allowing yourself to be transparent about the fear actually can draw someone closer to you in a good way.
It's kind of hot.
Right? Yeah.
And I think for me, it's you're being vulnerable with that person. You're letting your walls down a little bit. You're not trying to pretend like you're some perfect person who never has feelings and I am just all attraction and desire. It's like, no, I'm worried.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're worried, if you have some anxiety, it's probably because this is important to you. Like you're interested. You wouldn't be anxious if you weren't interested.
That's right.
And I think people know that. People can sense that, and we're attracted to vulnerability. We're attracted to somebody letting their walls down a little bit.
Well, and we're also, research shows we're attracted to people who are attracted to us. So just like you're saying, the nervousness points to, this matters to me. You matter to me. Yeah. So, I mean, coming back to the question around like, well, what if I'm shy? What if I'm nervous? I think what you said is a really great approach. And I just want to kind of normalize anxiety in flirtation and in dating. It's just so normal. Again, it means that it matters to you, which is a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for some, anxiety isn't just kind of like butterflies. It gets to the place where there's sort of a terror of humiliation or rejection. It can stop them from flirting at all. It might actually make them do things like kind of talk uncontrollably or sweat or blush. And so I want to just name that when it gets to a certain level, that's actually dating anxiety, which is a form of social anxiety. And it is something that can be treated with some psychotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to look at like how much is my anxiety just altogether stopping me? In which case, that's probably a good indicator that getting help from a professional is going to be important.
That's such a great point. And I think it helps normalize, like, you're not doing something wrong.
Yes.
Right? Like, if you have that level of anxiety, it's not that there's something wrong with you. It's just that you have this brain wiring or this experience from past experiences, whatever it might be that has led to this. There's nothing wrong with you. There's just maybe some support to get from a professional that'll help you overcome that so you can be really present in your dates, in relationships, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah. So some other things to help with flirtation anxiety, I like to differentiate between mindset and skill set.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell me more.
Yeah. So when it comes to flirtation and confidence, we've got knowing how to flirt, right? Having the skills, having sort of practiced them and honed them.
Like an example of this might be even being able to identify, I want to hold your hand.
Right.
And express it, like verbally expressing that.
You got it.
Like I might not know necessarily in the moment, I want to connect in some way, but I don't even know necessarily how I want to do that. Or if I do know, I don't know how to say it.
Yes.
So that might be a skill set to develop.
You got it. Absolutely. Yes. And then mindset is all the stuff that's going on inside that either is going to support you to feel confident or not. Okay. The reason I separate these two out is oftentimes when people come to us really struggling to flirt, they struggle with one, the other, or both. So it's important to really look at, okay, how much would it just help me to have some of these skills, right? Versus I need to be looking at some of the anxiety, some of the beliefs that I'm coming in with that might be stopping me from feeling really comfortable.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine that sometimes working on some of the skill sets may also help with some of the mindset.
Yes.
That kind of help lower the anxiety. If you had some exposure, had some practice with some of these skills, it may feel a little bit less foreign when then you go to do it on a date.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Another thing that can help with flirtation anxiety is to change your definition of flirting, like we've been talking about, lowering the bar, giving yourself credit for a gentle smile, for tuning into what you would enjoy with that person, for just asking a question.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what else might we do if we're feeling too shy or too anxious to flirt?
Yeah. I mean, what you were just saying about how just practicing skills can kind of expose you and reduce your anxiety over time can actually help with mindset. That's a really great point. And, you know, we did an episode on why dating is so hard, particularly if you're anxious, that goes over a 3-step process, which includes really challenging yourself, both challenging and soothing yourself in dating. And so I definitely recommend checking that episode out if you haven't already. With flirtation anxiety, we do have to balance kind of gently challenging ourselves, right? So maybe trying a thing that feels somewhat risky and then kind of giving ourselves some nice self-care or nurturance so that we can kind of process the experience. And over time, that's going to allow us to expand our comfort zone.
I love that. Okay. And then I also imagine that these are things that you could work with a professional around. There's a lot of really good approaches specifically around how to treat social and dating anxiety to help reduce the anxiety, increase your comfort zone. And yeah.
Absolutely.
More you'd want to say about that?
Yes. So I really recommend for anyone who's wanting to expand their comfort zone, and really learn how to flirt, to do theater improv or to go see a drama therapist. So I'm a drama therapist. There's a lot of drama therapists on our team. And what we do is we use theater, improv, et cetera, to help people grow in lots of different ways, including learn flirtation skills and expand their comfort zone. So I really think because improv is thinking on your feet in a way that is collaborative and playful, it's like that is flirtation. If you can really get some of those skills under your belt, you're not going to need to, memorize these lists of what flirtation looks like. You're just going to kind of have it in your bones.
I love that. That is such a good point. Improv is play.
Yes.
Improv is play. It makes me think about one of the principles of improv being yes and how that in itself is a flirtation principle of saying yes to what your partner is bringing and adding something to it. And I want to add like a little caveat to that. That is, sometimes there is something that your partner brings that you're not ready for.
Right.
And one of, I think, the skill sets that we can develop is how do I say no and? That's, I'm not ready for that. And I'm still interested in connecting with you.
Right.
If that's true.
You're yes anding connection if you really want the connection.
Yeah.
Even if the specific doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
Because again, flirting like a feminist is consensual.
Yeah. Yeah. So it might be like, well, no, I'm actually not quite ready to hold your hand, but I'd really love to sit on this bench and talk to you some more and look into your eyes.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
Cool. Anything else that you would say about how to address being shy or some of the dating anxiety around flirting?
Well, I think that for some people, getting honest feedback can be really helpful for reducing anxiety. Again, coming back to this sort of like terror of being creepy, along with people who are sort of like, am I coming across as flirtatious at all? All right. So they're just like not sure how they're coming across. So getting some honest feedback, which I know is not always easy. Sometimes, our friends, they just like to say, you're great, just be yourself. And it can be hard to get honest feedback from dates. So, I do recommend if you're working with a dating coach or dating therapist, just really soliciting their honest feedback. I know that on our team, we have a mock date service where people come and they get really detailed feedback after going on a mock date. And, if that is not available to you, really finding someone that you do trust and just having a really transparent conversation with them, making it really clear that truly, I actually do want your honest feedback. I know that's very scary to give. And I just really want to hear what you have to say.
I love that acknowledgement that it's scary to give honest feedback because it is, especially if it's something that we think is going to maybe be negative or come across as hurtful in some way. Like it can be very scary to give that feedback. And so acknowledging that is very sweet. And then we also have to follow it up with not laying it into them or not taking it personally, right?
Yes.
Really being willing, like, okay, I'm wanting this feedback. I'm going to use this feedback to develop my skill here, to grow, not to use it to make myself wrong or to, give evidence for why I'm terrible at flirting and I'll never get a date. And
yes.
But really just like, let me use that feedback. We take it in compassionately and learn from it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think if you really want to receive honest feedback, get good at receiving feedback, right? Don't get defensive. Don't turn in on yourself. Not that that's, easier said than done. And yeah, if you can come in with that energy of, I genuinely am fully open to this feedback, you're more likely to get it.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, Josh.
Yes.
Which is, do you have any words of wisdom as a man who identifies as a feminist, who has dated? Do you have any words of wisdom, feedback that you want to share?
I mean, I think so much of what we've shared in this episode is gold, that it's about this sweet spot of play, of expressing desire respectfully, consensually, respecting the no if you hear it or see it. And and that it's okay. It's okay to have desire also. I think maybe that's worth acknowledging in this, that we can go to these either ends of the spectrum of being super, super safe, where we're just not even acknowledging our own desire, our own attraction, and finding ways to express that in a healthy way, in a consensual way. That is not all or nothing. It's not like either I'm so focused on my desire that I'm just ignoring everything else. I'm just pursuing this, which is, I think, what a lot of us are worried about being. And it's also not, I have to shut it all down and be very kind of respectful and careful and overly cautious, because if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to break somebody. People are incredibly strong, they're resilient, and they'll tell you, either verbally or non-verbally, whether they're interested in what you're doing. And if you don't know, ask. It may be like, oh, maybe I reached across to hold your hand or something and you pulled your hand away. It could be a little vulnerable, but it's like, oh, I'm really excited to connect with you. I just want to check in. Is this okay? Mm-hmm. Are you enjoying this? Mm-hmm. Are you wanting this right now, or is there something that we can do that will make it better for you? It's like, when in doubt, ask. When in doubt, communicate. When in doubt, ask for consent. That just solves so many problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, and I want to just highlight one thing you said, which is, I think, very important. Trusting that the other person will tell you if something's not okay. That in and itself is a feminist stance. Mm. I believe you are strong enough, person across from me, to speak up.
Yeah, and remembering that the cue may not be nonverbal.
Yes, absolutely.
And sometimes we need to tune our radar. Maybe we're not used to looking for those signals. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it may be almost a little bit of like make it into a game of like, can I tune in enough to this person to really sense into, oh, I think they're excited, or oh, I think they're maybe less excited about this, and make it more about tuning in and playing in a way that's fun for them, than it is about getting any particular outcome.
Yes. Yeah, and that's, for me, from my own personal experience, the thing I want to re-highlight is the moments when I have really enjoyed flirtation is when the other person has been genuinely enjoying themselves, right? Like Josh, when I see your eyes lit up when you're looking at me and we're playing or whatever it is, like that just melts my heart.
Yeah.
So if you can hold on to that, really getting into just genuinely enjoying the other person, savoring that moment. What's better than that?
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would leave a rating and review in your Apple Podcasts app. You can find all of the notes from today's show at our show notes at relationshipcenter.com/podcast. And until next time.
We love you too.
We love you too.
Bye.
Bye.